Yeah, he's timeless, that guy. He really is. And, I just coached him this past summer, coached him in Tokyo in 21. So it's been a privilege coaching Kevin and watching him, as an opponent. He's just a beautiful basketball player, just maybe the smoothest scorer who's ever played the game.
Dub Nation, it's Steve Kerr. You're listening to Willard and Dibs on 95.7 The Game.
Well, thanks, Coach. That Kevin Durant guy sounds like someone you might want on your team.
Yeah, he's done well with them. He's only won 2 out of every 3 titles when he's had them.
You ever get one of those moments where you're like, oh, hold on, I see the whole thing differently now?
It's a light bulb. It's an aha.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, not the ha-ha.
Yeah.
It's the aha.
And not the 80s pop band aha.
No,
shout out Take on Me.
Right.
Although they might take on KD.
Okay, everybody listen to this.
I'll take it too.
Yeah, no. 3.
I'm happy with it.
Everybody listen to this. This is really, really, really important.
I've got no choice. It's my job
to
listen to it. But
Actually,
I'm interested.
You and I do really well at not listening to each other.
Pretty good.
Anyway.
Yep.
888-957-957. 3 things just happened. Did I leave a number out?
0. 95.7.
I'm excited. 888-957-9570. Okay? There's going to be a big aha question at the end of this 3-pronged delivery that we are about to throw to you right after, because this literally fell into our laps right at the end of the Steve Kerr conversation. 3 things. Number 1, Bovada has removed Kevin Durant from betting markets with regard to where he may go.
What does that mean?
Off the board.
Huh.
Don't want to take any more bets on it.
That indicates that maybe something is in the offing.
That's what most would think.
Okay.
But that's only number 1, because a lot of you be like, okay. So it's off of the overseas markets.
Right.
That's number 1.
The markets tend to be ahead of the actual thing.
Number 2, the Phoenix Suns just listed Kevin Durant as doubtful for tomorrow night's game, also known as last game before the deadline.
Tomorrow's game?
Tomorrow's game, not tonight. They just played an overtime game in Portland. They lost it.
Right.
He played over 40 minutes in that game.
He played 46 minutes in that game.
They lost back-to-back games in Portland. That's what they did over the weekend after beating Golden State Friday night. They now have the same record as the Warriors again, and they are already listing Kevin as doubtful for tomorrow.
Even though he didn't leave the game with anything other than hurt feelings having lost to Portland.
He left with a sweaty tank top. That's what he did.
And 27 points.
And 27 points.
In a loss.
Which is his average. It's a regular night for Kevin Durant. Third thing, and this just came down from Sam Amick, The Athletic, in partnership with our own slates and David Aldridge, also other tapped-in great NBA writers. First part of the piece is that the Warriors may have company in the Kevin Durant party. Now, you could read this multiple ways. Obviously, there would be a lot of teams interested in Kevin Durant, right? But whenever I see something like this at the last minute, hey, there are other teams involved. It's the Scott Boras playbook, and it's perfect. It is simply Phoenix trying to get more from the Warriors. Hey, Dallas and Houston want him too. Good for you, Dallas and Houston. Dallas, you're drunk. I don't even know what the hell you think you're doing. And Houston is a young team that I would argue is probably, with a great record, not in a position to be giving up their young assets for Kevin Durant. Maybe some, I don't know, but not their top players because they're doing really well. Why would they do that? Now, that's my read on the situation, but here's the better part of the article. And here's where I want you to stop what you're doing.
Because you're about to ruin.
Listen to this sentence directly from the article. League sources say 4-time All-Star forward Draymond Green, who has an established relationship with fellow Michigan State alum and Suns owner Matt Ishbia, is among the Warriors players Phoenix is known to covet.
stand on it.
I think this is all incredibly fascinating because what it means to me, and this is the question that I want to throw out to everybody right now, you got to figure that Phoenix is after a few things. If this is actually going to come to pass, if there's a conversation with the Warriors right now about Kevin Durant, and we have all these reasons to believe that there is, Phoenix is going to want what? A pick or 2 picks or whatever, as many first-round picks as they can get. We've already seen the report that they would like Jonathan Kuminga, and now we need that salary booster. We've all been sitting here thinking it was Wiggins. What if it's Draymond, who makes only $2 million less? And it leads to the question to all of you wonderful 95-7 the game Warrior heads. If you have to include one approximate $25 million contract to the Suns for Kevin Durant, would you rather it be Andrew Wiggins or Draymond Green? How would you answer that?
Draymond Green.
So would I.
I mean, what Andrew Wiggins does is, I think, a lot more useful as far as being a scorer, better scorer than Draymond Green, and a wing defender. And Draymond Green can be the stretch 5, but less and less so than ever before. And he already said earlier this year that he's not as into playing the 5 as he used to. And now he's dealing with a little bit of injury, and we know that this injury is not like the other injuries he's had, which tells me that the knees need to be iced every time he comes off the floor, and the back is a little bit wonky. Andrew Wiggins doesn't miss games due to injury very often. He misses games due to family off-court issues, and that's well documented. And he missed games because he didn't want to get vaccinated back when that was a thing post-COVID. And that's all behind us. But Andrew Wiggins is available. He goes out there and he plays. And I do think if you had he and Kevin Durant as your wings, and Kuminga probably would be a part of this trade, honestly, if you're Phoenix and you want to get,
you would think, but the salary thing,
if Draymond Green is a part of what you want, Draymond Green is not enough. Draymond Green and filler and picks to me is not enough. You would want Draymond, Kuminga, filler, and then maybe a lesser pick. If I'm Phoenix, that's what I'd be looking for.
I would think so. The salary stuff for both organizations gets very wonky. It's very difficult with the Warriors and the Suns. So knowing that Kuminga, it's not just a player, it's whatever you're going to have to sign him to next year. Draymond is a player who's under contract for a while, so is Wiggins. So those are contracts they're going to have to play into next year. Does this become a 3-team deal that leads Jimmy Butler to Phoenix? And then what do you do? Like, there is a lot to answer here. But for Warrior fans, I think that's the focus in this moment. The focus in this moment is now the idea that instead of having to give up Wiggins and Kuminga, you could do Draymond and Kuminga. And whatever draft capital, there would probably be another expiring contract thrown in, a Schroeder, something like that. But that gets it done. That gets it done, but it also means now the second leg of the big 3 would be out the door. And that's an emotional thing for some Warrior fans. I know there are also a lot of Warrior fans that are like, see you, Dre. I'll drive you to Phoenix myself. I know that's a thing for a lot of fans. I look at it this way right now because I'm mindful, for example, of what Draymond Green just did last night at the end of that game to Paolo Banchero in a major possession. He stood that dude up. He still has that defensive juice, just not as often.
Right.
But he still has it in leveraged possessions, and that's a big deal. But I also remember what Kevin Durant, even at age 36, what he means around the rim. And it's very significant. He's not a great defensive player anymore, but he's such a physical piece of the puzzle. And obviously 6'10", it changes things around the rim. So he can turn into one of the best offensive players in the league, and also to a degree, at least at times, a rim protector who pairs very well with defensive-minded bigs like Kevon Looney. For example, I think that this kind of an acquisition would be a rebirth to Kevon Looney if he was not in the deal. He's an expiring contract. Maybe he's going to be in the deal.
Maybe.
But maybe not. And maybe this is a rebirth to him and his role. And maybe that front court without Draymond of Durant and Looney, maybe that makes up for the lack of Draymond. I'm with you. If I were forced into a decision on this one, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I would rather see Draymond Green go at this point because of, A, they need more scoring, so I'd rather keep Wiggins, and he's younger, and B, I just think that there are at least, not all, but some in the organization who are exhausted.
Yeah.
Are exhausted, and we've reached that time where it doesn't work anymore. So everyone has always been able to wrap their arms around Draymond Green because it worked. And now with the organization not winning enough basketball games, he's been a good soldier. He's been well-behaved.
One of the best,
He's been well-behaved this year as promised. So it's not really about that. But I just those things that he does well they're not as consistent anymore. So I'll take the scoring.
Yeah. 888-957-9570. If you had to deal one of them to get KD, who would you deal? Wiggins or Draymond? And I do think it's a tough call because Draymond has been such a great Warrior, four-time champ. And like you said, what he did last night defensively is something that will not be replaceable. When you need a big stop, Draymond's the guy. And he also hit a big bucket late in that game as well.
I know it bounce, but
whatever, shooter's touch.
Yep.
I mean, we don't call it lucky when Steph gets an 8 bouncer on the rim because he's the best shooter ever.
Right.
So, I mean, let's not be too disrespectful. The shot went in. It's a make or miss league, but Andrew Wiggins plays more often. He is more consistent. And, Draymond Green, last year in his game log, he played in 55 games, 55 of the 82, not because of health, but because of suspension. So if you had to trade one of them to get KD, or maybe you're of a mind saying, I don't want to trade either one of them. I don't want KD.
That's fair, too.
That
Absolutely.
opinion's out there as well.
All right, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMC FM and HD1 San Francisco and Odyssey Sports Station. Always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch and YouTube, powered by First NorCal Credit Union for a low-rate auto loan. Apply online or just ask for First NorCal financing of the dealer. Also, remember, the keyword to claim a spot in the knockout tournament at Chase Center is coming up in 10 minutes or less, so stay right where you are. If you're just joining us, Bovada has pulled Kevin Durant acquisition odds off of the market. The Suns have announced that Kevin Durant is doubtful for tomorrow night's game, and The Athletic is reporting that the Suns covet Draymond Green. So if you need a $25 million contract in Kevin Durant talks, would you rather the Warriors include Wiggins or Draymond? It probably would not take both. So which would you rather in the deal? Dibs and I are both saying Draymond, as much as it would hurt. We're not haters. I love Draymond Green. I've been a fan of him for a long time. He is a champ, but I just think we've arrived at that time where that stuff with Klay Thompson gone and whatnot, like that stuff can't really drive the bus anymore. 888-957-9570. Here's what Draymond said last night about the trade deadline and the team.
Sitting at 500, gotta expect that they're gonna look to be aggressive. It's not an organization that's gonna do anything dumb, but they're gonna look to be aggressive, and I understand it. I respect it. So when you're sitting at 500 and you have the expectations as an organization that we have, it's definitely gonna be a little more intense. And then you add into the fold of Luka Doncic just got traded, so everyone thinks everything's possible at this point, right? If you saw that and you didn't call every superstar, you're crazy.
Okay. So there's Draymond, knowing that everybody is available. We got a super chat from YouTube. Grandy, what does it say?
Yeah, the great Rich Mitchin, $2 to say 30, as in Steph, won't trade Draymond. Ownership needs to do it for him. What do you think, Steph? Would Steph sign off on a Draymond Green trade?
For Kevin Durant? I do. I do think he would. I absolutely do think he would. Listen, I think that these guys know this is a performance-based business. It's a results-based business. And listen, you watch the way, for instance, all that controversy with Jordan Poole, but you watch the way that they interact with one another when they come back together for pregame and whatnot. There's still plenty of love and friendship there. But you damn well better believe Steph also signed off on Jordan Poole getting sent out of the building.
Right.
And then it became Klay Thompson. And I know that was different because Klay kind of drove that one. But just my read on it, yes, I think there is an absolute obsession with winning and being good, and this ain't working. And so, yes, all's on the table.
And the great Rich Mitchin followed up with another super chat saying trade Dre and Kuminga, and I put that in the trade machine. and it would be Draymond Green, Dennis Schroeder, Kuminga, and Lindy Waters as your throw-in.
Throw it in.
And, whatever a pick would have to be included to get KD, and that works, although it does say the Warriors would lose 13 games.
Of course.
On the Hollinger analysis, which is just a statistical breakdown. And, you have not affected the winning percentage of Phoenix, but I do think if you are able to keep Wiggins and you bring back KD and you've got Steph and Wiggins and KD as your big three, you still have Buddy and Kavan and GP2 and Pods and TJD. You still have enough pieces, I think, around them to this year only still tread water and be in the play-in at least.
888-957-9570. We're going to go to the phones in just a sec, but I also want to throw this out there from our conversation with Nick Friedel yesterday, Odyssey NBA insider who covered the KD-era Warriors, because I know a lot of you have also, I've heard a lot of people say this today, KD wouldn't play with Draymond. And obviously in this scenario, maybe Draymond is the one who's in the deal, but would KD still play with Draymond again? Nick said this.
I absolutely believe Kevin, Draymond, Steph could make it work. The key with all of those guys, on top of being Hall of Fame players, they want to win, and they've been around enough spots in their career to know that in order for them to win, they need players who understand them around them. So I've never bought into this idea that Kevin could never come back and it could never work because of all the bad blood that happened at the end and that maybe lingered for a few years. I think everybody's in a different place, and that's life. People change, and there is that evolution of what's going on. But I don't see any reason why Kevin and Draymond and Steph, being the leader that he is, couldn't look at each other and go, okay, we know what this was and what that provided for us. We know what it still can be, and all three of us are on two teams right now that just aren't good enough. So why not come back together?
Okay, so he says it's still doable. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but just to have that as part of this discussion, one man's opinion is that, yes, Kevin would play with Draymond again. And again, a much less educated guess, I feel the same way just by watching the way they've interacted the last few years.
Yeah, but watching them interact as opponents 2 or 3 times a year as opposed to 82 games plus playoffs plus preseason, road trips and practices and all the rest of it.
That's a good point.
It's a little bit different. And,
sure.
I can't help but think about the Olympics this year when Draymond was in the second row and he's cheering everybody on and he's waving the towel and, he and KD and LeBron and Steph, and it was a brotherhood for America. And again, small sample size on the Champs-Élysées for a week as opposed to we got 6-game road trip and this guy's wearing me out possession after possession. It feels to me, and I've always thought that the two of them couldn't play together again. I could be wrong, but the idea that Kevin Durant's been ruled as doubtful tomorrow, the odds are off the board, the deadline's in 2 days, and I'm reading from Chris Mannix that Phoenix is either going to make a deal with Butler and work out a 3-team deal, or they're just going to pivot, and Kevin Durant on the way out might be that pivot.
Well, and it may have to be. The Bradley Beal thing is the linchpin, got a no-trade clause, and from what I've heard, everywhere that they're trying to send him, he and his family are like, nope, we're not going there. And so he's the one who actually has the power in that whole thing, and wouldn't it be amazing if that the family desires of Bradley Beal leads to Kevin Durant being a Warrior again? That'd be incredible, I think. Larry in Lafayette, next up here on Willard and Dibs. Larry, thank you for calling.
Well, thanks for opening it up. It seems to me that there was a big shift in Warrior world when the punch happened, and because of the sort of difficult and ugly nature of that, I think that changed a lot of things. We actually gave Poole away for a really decrepit CP3, and then we didn't do anything with CP3's contract. That was a big mistake. So we're in this situation. I have a feeling it might have impacted our reputation as a place to go play. It sure would me if I were a professional player. I wouldn't necessarily want to step in where people can come and smash your grill and no consequence. So anyway, I will be okay with Dre going away because Wiggins is our only point of attack defender which, by the way, sometimes it makes me crazy that you compare only his offensive numbers, because he's the only guy we've got that can keep people out of the paint.
Well, it's a fair point, and this is not to absolve me on that. I know you're referring to the conversation we were having an hour ago. The tweet I had sent out did actually mention player A is a better defender than player B. So I'm glad you brought that up and brought that to the air, because you're absolutely right.
Yeah, because basically I know that if I'm sure Dallas would want him. I'm sure the Celtics would probably want him. He's a really great player going two-way and cheerfully taking his shots whenever he can get them. He doesn't call for the ball. He doesn't require playmaking. He's just a really all-around good teammate.
Larry, thank you very much. So it's a really good call. I always feel compelled to bring this up when people talk about the Jordan Poole trade. And those opinions are totally fair. This is just my perspective, although it is also what I was told from sources deep within the Warrior community. I would suggest looking at the Jordan Poole trade less about you traded Jordan Poole for Chris Paul. You did, but it was more you traded Jordan Poole's contract for Chris Paul's contract. And even though you didn't end up turning that contract into a big trade at the end of Chris Paul's tenure, the money expired. The money expired. They traded a big contract for an expiring contract.
Right.
And in that moment, that mattered to the Warriors. If it doesn't matter to you, I get it, but it mattered to the Warriors.
And it mattered to them. That way they could get underneath the second apron,
Yes.
which is very punitive when you're under that, or when you're over that apron in a repeat way. And if they could have turned Chris Paul into another player that would have helped them, they would have done it. But they couldn't, and so they were happy to just get underneath that apron, and now this year you stay below the luxury tax apron, and you can go above it next year and not have the repeater penalty, which actually costs you a first-round pick down the road.